Hello, thank you for joining me for our third video in this oil painting tutorial series. Firstly, I want to give a special thanks to my partner in crime, Chi, for giving me this awesome haircut. Now I feel much more cool. And secondly, the tasks for today are to choose our reference image and to prepare it for use in Photoshop. You can choose any image that you like, but if you want to follow along with us, then you can choose the same image that I have selected. And that is a photograph of the Gokiori Valley in Nepal. It's in the Sagarmatha National Park, and the photo was taken by Natalia Luzuriaga for the 2010 National Geographic Photography Contest. This photo is copyrighted, so please don't publish or misuse it. I'm using it only for educational purposes to teach how to paint, but I'm not going to publish the photo. I can and you can publish the paintings that you make based on this photo. I will also put a link to the LinkedIn page of Natalia Luzuriaga in case you want to contact her about copyrights for this painting. Anyway, you will find the link to this beautiful photograph down in the description of the video, and you can just right click on it and save it on your computer, as I have done to use for this tutorial. The reason I really like this photo is, besides the fact that it's such a beautiful mountain valley, it also has great use of complementary colors like the blues and the orange, and they really come out, just pop out so beautifully in this photograph. You can also see it's combined with whites and darks to create a really dramatic effect and creates a really feeling of depth and the vastness of the mountains. In the foreground, you see there is a monastery. Those white buildings belong to Buddhist monastery. You can choose to paint the monastery, or if you prefer fantasy environments, you can replace it by painting some kind of castle or some fortress in there instead. Okay, so please follow the download link below and download the image and open it up in Photoshop. I'm gonna skip over to my Photoshop screen, and you see it's already in Photoshop, but it's not ready for painting it. Firstly, I want to crop it. Generally, I use the standard US paper 8.5 by 11. So let's use the crop tool, and I'll put the height will be 8.5 or 85 by 11. I just multiplied by 10, but it's the same ratio. And then when I make a crop, you see it's rather small. This image is very wide, and I would be losing a lot of it. Even if I move the selected area somewhere towards the middle, I would be losing some beautiful parts of this image. Like I like the mountain on the right, but I want to also keep the mountains on the left. So this time I chose to not use the 8.5 by 11 format. Instead, to keep the wider panorama of the picture, I decided to go with a different ratio, which is 16 by 9. 16 by 9 is a ratio used by, high definition TV, and it offers a much wider view. So if I drag in 16 by 9 ratio, you can see I'm even grabbing all the way to include the mountain on the right side. It still doesn't cover the whole picture. There is still some part on the right which is not included, but I'm not so interested in that part. It's mostly just a slope, and there's not much interest in it. I can move my selected area around to the right more, but I don't want to do that either, because I want to follow the rule of the thirds. A rule of the thirds is a rule in photography and in fine arts, in painting, which says that things like a focus of interest should be along the thirds of the picture, not straight in the middle. Otherwise, the picture might become too static, and I want to keep that monastery a little bit to the right, not in the middle. Because if you look at the slopes of the mountains to the left, they all slope down and point right to the monastery. So these are lines leading to the focus of the picture, and the focus is the monastery. And if I follow the rule of the thirds, the monastery is going to be right along the thirds, a third of the picture, maybe a little more closer to the center. But I think it creates a much better composition than if you had selected the entire picture and the monastery was right in the middle. So I'm gonna crop that. So image crop. And so this is my cropped picture. We are not ready yet. If you go to image size, you will see that this image is still too huge. It's like 6160 pixels by 3465 pixels. And the resolution is rather odd, 220. That's not none of those numbers are really standard. So firstly, change the resolution to 300. 300 is the DPI that's best for quality print. And the width and height change to 3840 for the width, so 3840. And the height will automatically pop to 2160. And this is the resolution called UHD, which is the resolution of like 4K TVs and monitors. And it's a very standard number, 3840 by 2160. And then we have the high resolution of 300 dpi, or pixels per inch. And then click OK. So now we have created our original image or reference image, but in the layers we see that it is as a background, and we don't really want this to be as a background because we want it to be our reference, and later we will turn it off. So double click on the word background in the layers panel and just create a layer called Orig, O-R-I-G, or original. And below that I'm going to create another layer. So I'm clicking new layer, this layer 1 I'm going to drag below the original image, and I'm just going to select a pure gray color. So just like zero saturation and blackness of 50. You don't have to do this, but I like to fill my background with gray, and using the paint bucket tool I'll just click on it. Now I clicked on the layer below original. So if I hide the original layer, you see the background is completely gray. And I'll just call this gray. And that's going to be my background. So now we have two layers, original and gray. And now we are pretty much ready to start painting. We will create a new layer above the original, and it's just an empty layer. But before we do that, we will save this image to our computer so that we can use it as a reference image. Because we won't use this image too much in the in Photoshop. This is not a tutorial about photo retouching. We want to practice painting. So we will use this original image just to get the shapes and the base colors of the painting into our palette, and then after that we won't use the image anymore, but you can use it as a reference image and look at it in a, like I have two monitors, in a separate monitor or in another window on your main monitor as a reference image, and then follow it to paint it as if you actually went there and looked at the view and painted it on a canvas. So save it as a JPEG in this cropped version on your computer, and then we will use a program called PureRef, which is a free program. So I have it installed already, and I'll give you a link in the description. And when you create, when you open PureRef, initially there is nothing in the image, but you can drag an image in there. So let me see. Okay, so I'm gonna drag the image in here, and I can change and scale PureRef. And basically what I'm gonna do is have this scaled image somewhere in a corner. It can be even smaller. I'll just have this image somewhere in a corner to take a look at. Oops, you have to use the right mouse button to move the window. And I might put it like somewhere over here, or in my case, in my second monitor. If you don't have a second monitor, that's okay. But basically, it's going to be a picture that you can use as a reference. And you don't have to zoom in on it. It can be zoomed out like this, because initially, all you care about is seeing the main shapes, the basic shapes, and the colors. If you want to do detail work on something, you can zoom in on that picture and move around in it and see details. But generally we will just be using the image by itself. So when we do oil painting, it's not like a photograph. If you want to do high detail, you might as well just take a photograph and you will get all the detail that you want. But with oil painting, we're trying to capture the feeling and the character of the image. So the depth of the valley, the greatness, the beautiful colors, the kind of feeling that it invokes in people when they look at it. And so don't focus on every little detail. Focus on getting the shapes and colors blended together beautifully to create the feeling that you want. In the image you can see the monastery has a lot of little windows and little details in it. I'm going to simplify it. You won't even see the black windows, you'll just see the white walls, and we will see what kind of feeling it creates, and if it needs to have more detail, then we'll add more detail to it later. Okay, now you're ready to begin painting, and so I will close this section, and in the next section we will start by creating the basic shapes and putting down the basic colors of our painting. See you in the next video.